Welcome to the Money Pickle Podcast, where you can listen and learn about money without falling asleep. And if you need a better understanding of your financial situation, or maybe you just want a second opinion, head to moneypickle.com, where you can schedule a free 45-minute virtual appointment with one of our experienced professionals. And with that said, let's dive into the episode.
Hi everybody, it's Mason Goris. I'm a pickle pro.
Hello everybody, my name is Ryan Crew. I'm a pickle pro and also a financial planner.
So today we're going to start off the episode, and Ryan was really itching to talk about this yesterday. So we are going to talk about inflation rates in the United States compared to the inflation rates in Venezuela.
It's a good comparison. Venezuela's got the highest inflation rate in the world right now, but I think there's a lot of eyes on interest rates and inflation in the United States right now. It's a big talking point for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Inflation rates last year were high, up over 9%. They're down to about 6% now. It still feels very, very high. Mm-hmm. You know, the government last year, aggressive interest rate hikes. Federal Reserve came out and did 7 rate hikes in 1 year. We haven't seen it in a few decades. Inflation rate kind of tapering off now. What does this mean going forward?
Yeah, well, inflation, obviously we don't want inflation, as high as it is long term, right? We run at an average of, roughly 3% historically in the U.S., it's a lot higher in other countries, to your point about what's going on in Venezuela right now. And, there was a term that was being thrown around when inflation started increasing, post-COVID, and there's maybe a few reasons why it was going up, some supply chain issues perhaps, post-COVID as well. But we like to run at kind of our happy medium. Inflation's high, and this term that was that's been thrown around was called transitory inflation. Everybody was thinking that it was going to be short-lived, maybe 12 months, high inflation, then everybody's, inflation will start coming down. People will stop, paying outrageous prices for a car or home project or a can of paint or something like that. And that just hasn't happened. I mean, we still have high inflation. The Fed is trying, with the limited resources that they have to obviously combat that with rising interest rates. And I think that inflation's been a little bit more prominent now because if you look at the amount of money that was saved into people's bank accounts during COVID, I think people just turned a blind eye to some of the outrageous prices out there and said, you know what, I've got enough money in the bank account. Yeah, XYZ has risen, 20, 30%, over the past couple of years, but I'm still going to spend the money on that because I have it. And so I think that, we've all kind of shot ourselves in our own foot, with we're still paying the higher prices, and companies are obviously quick to pass through their increased costs onto the ultimate consumer of their product or service. So I think they will come back down. Is it going to happen over 6 months? No, probably not. Is it going to happen over 12 months? Probably not as well. We probably won't get down to our normal 3% or so operating rate. And it's high inflation over long term is not great. Over a short term, it happens. It spikes for certain reasons. And obviously people feel the impact of that, at the gas pump and everything.
Right, and I think what you said was important, is inflation's a little bit stickier now than it normally is. Normally, a few interest rate hikes can taper inflation off and bring it down. Well, what we're seeing is all these interest rate hikes, and as to your point, spending never slowed. And part of the reason that is one, you had a lot of people who built up that nest egg in their bank accounts through COVID. But what you also see is unemployment rate was still relatively low. If people are still making money, they're still going to spend money, even if it costs a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And now we're kind of seeing things slow a little bit more with the interest rate hikes, making it more difficult for people to spend money, to get money from banks for bigger purchases. Bigger purchases are slowing down a lot more, homes and auto loans and things of that nature. But when companies start to tighten the pocketbook a little bit with what we've been seeing with a lot of big companies around here, that's when you're going to see spending slow. Unemployment rate's going to rise. That'll hopefully make a bigger dent in inflation than what we've seen recently. and going forward, we'll try and get around that happy medium. So I think we made on some good points there.
I was also talking to Ryan about this yesterday. What is the differences between the highs and lows of inflation? So you guys mentioned that a lot of times you guys are financial planners. You guys run some of these plans around 1%, 2% inflation, if not 3%. So I'm curious as to we're at about 6% inflation, give or take. So what is the benefit of having it down to 2%, and why do you guys normally practice running things at 2%?
Well, when Ryan and I are putting our financial planning hat on, and when we're working some, kind of advanced planning software, the input of inflation in a planning software is not necessarily asking what is the, prevailing inflation rate in the economy, that we would enter in, roughly 3.5%, maybe 4%, play it conservative. But the input of an inflation rate in a financial planning software is more so asking, what is your spending pattern going to look like over time? And, when we're working with people who are, 65, they're retiring, and they're asking us, how much can they spend without running out of money? It's a really tough variable to enter in the system because, if we just put in 3% inflation, that would assume that, that client is going to continue spending their current $5,000 a month, let's say, but then that's going to increase for the rest of their life. In reality, will they continue that level of spending for the rest of their life? Most likely not. The vast majority of people start reducing their spending, in their mid-late 70s, certainly early mid-80s, with obviously the asterisks there, being healthcare, which is really one of the only costs that tends to increase over time in retirement. You're consolidating to one car, you're going on less trips, you're staying closer to home, closer to doctors, closer to family. So, we have to essentially pick an inflation rate in a planning software that's going to draw a trend line between what is their spending going to look like over the rest of their life. And generally it's kind of a swooping curve. They'll probably keep pace with inflation or spend more money earlier on in retirement, then it'll taper off. They'll actually have negative inflation, if you will, and then it might spike back at the end. So we're trying to pick an inflation rate, generally it's very low single digit, perhaps even 1% in certain situations, that draws the trend line between what their natural, progression is going to look like over time. But it's, it's one of the biggest variables, or most impactful variables in financial planning is what the inflation rate is. I can go into all my clients' financial plans and throw in a 4 or 5% rate of inflation and see the vast majority of them running out of money. And in reality, that's just probably not going to be the case. They're in great shape financially. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I think it's important that Mason, to your point, that you kind of see this inverted bell curve as you go into retirement. Mm-hmm. Why don't we run inflation at a consistent 3%? Well, when people enter into retirement, right? That's maybe your mid 60s. You've still got some energy. You want to do all these things that you've saved up your money to go do. So your spending will increase, right, as you enter into retirement for a few years. Generally, what happens, if you think about any of your grandparents or anything, how active are they? How many trips are they truly going on? How much money are they spending outside of, their normal expenses? So you get up here, and as you kind of move into your 70s and your 80s, you start to slow down. You become a little bit more of a homebody, just based on, a lot of the clients that we have and what generally happens. Now, there's some people out there that, they spend until they can't anymore, right? And that's more power to them. But generally speaking, we see that inverted bell curve. You start high as you enter into retirement. You kind of get into the middle of retirement. You're spending low, and then it can always increase again just for medical costs and stuff like that. So running it at a 3% rate of inflation doesn't necessarily do spending patterns justice, which I think is why some of our financial plans, we don't run it at 3% because people really aren't spending that much money in retirement. We run it at more of a 1.5%, maybe 2%. So just an important thing to note in retirement spending.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well said, boys. So next we're going to move on to some financial questions, personal finance questions. And then some pretty good ones today that we got. Let's go with, at what age am I beyond repair to be able to have a comfortable retirement?
Retirement looks obviously different for a lot of people. There's no, magic dollar amount, right? to where, okay, you're comfortable or you've made it or what have you. It's all just based off your living expenses and looking at, what's your fixed income source coming in. Generally for most people, that's, only Social Security. Some people, might be lucky enough to have a pension as well. But, the difference between your fixed income, Social Security, pension, and what you want to spend every month, that spending gap, if you will, has to be, fulfilled by generally bank account, IRA, 401k, or something like that. So, even people who have zero savings, and it's just the reality that more than half of the people who retire nowadays only live off Social Security. I mean, just a lot of people aren't, great savers. Now, does that mean they don't have a good retirement? Not necessarily, because if they've built their lifestyle around just, $1,500 a month, $2,000 a month, and that's what their Social Security covers, then they might be fine. Yeah, they don't have a lot of wiggle room, for other expenses that come up, or a furnace or something. A $5,000 bill might take them some time to pay off. But we have a fair number of clients who kind of got derailed along the way, and they're in their 50s, and finally a lot of life is behind them, and they're able to kind of be a lot more aggressive with saving, and they still are able to save up pretty decent chunk of money by the time they retire. Perhaps they need to delay retirement a little bit, till maybe late 60s or something like that. But there, there's no age or dollar value in which you're just in, terrible shape. Obviously, the more money, the better. Sure.
I don't think there's I wouldn't say there's an age or a number in your savings accounts, in your retirement accounts, that is a strong cutoff to where it's like, if I don't hit this, then I'm screwed, right? Because it to your point, it goes deeply into what are my expenses going to be in retirement. Like, if you have very small retirement accounts, but you don't have any debt going into retirement, if your mortgage is paid off, if you own your car, and your monthly expenses are covered by your fixed income, generally Social Security, pensions are a great thing. A lot of people have them, but they're becoming more and more rare. Then yeah, you can step on the gas pedal and go into retirement based on just collecting Social Security. It's all dependent on lifestyle. We have plenty of clients between us that have really large retirement accounts that we were talking about this yesterday, where you have some sizable accounts, but these people are losing sleep over the amount of money they have, right? All because their spending is so high in retirement, right? And then we have people who don't have very big retirement accounts, but are going through retirement the way that they want. Their fixed expenses are covered through their fixed income. They don't have to draw on their retirement accounts a whole lot, but they're not living some big lavish life, but it's exactly what they wanted in retirement, and they don't have to worry. So it's a give and a take. There's two sides to every story, and I wouldn't go as far as to say that there's a number or a age where you are screwed without a chance of retirement. It's all dependent on lifestyle and kind of your fixed income sources as you go into retirement.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say it definitely, obviously, again, makes you more vulnerable for, healthcare situations or things like that. But, those people, if you have small retirement account savings, and yes, you're just living off your fixed income, but then you have some type of big health event, well, then you have a high likelihood of probably needing to rely on the Medicaid system, which would require you to pay down all of your assets anyway, versus self-fund, an outrageous $6,000, $7,000 a month, skilled nursing facility or something, like that. So, but no, we see people all across the board, varying levels of savings, be, just be comfortable and happy, and just they manage their own expectations, and they just say, hey, here, this is what it is, and I can build my life around, my $3,000 a month and find happiness in that too. Yep.
Going off of that question, this next one kind of has to do with the same thing. I am 55 with no savings. I just opened up my first bank account. What should I do? What are my next steps?
Well, I think we can kind of work off of what we were just saying there. It's like, kind of set your expectations, right? If you have just started saving for retirement in your mid-50s, it's probably not realistic to think that you're going to retire at 60. You kind of got to tailor your expectations to the situation you're in. If you are just now starting to save at that point, it's not too late. You're never too late to the game to where you want to start putting money away for retirement. You just got to kind of push out retirement a little bit farther. Depending on the lifestyle again that you're gonna live in retirement, are you gonna be jumping on yachts and going on worldwide trips? Probably not. But if you are managing your expectations in retirement, you're setting up where you think these expenses are coming from, and you're putting away a nest egg. And if you've got your Social Security coming in, you very well can still retire with just saving at 55 right now, as long as a lot of those big debts are paid off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you might have to bootstrap it, right, as much as you can, and cut expenses and look at some things that aren't necessary in your life, and you can still hopefully find some room there to save a couple $100 a month, and perhaps a Roth IRA or some type of retirement account based on their situation, and you could still build up a nest egg for yourself, a rainy day fund. My biggest concern in that situation would be that, if this person has never had a bank account, that might mean they get, paid under the table or something like that. I don't know what their Social Security would look like if they've even, paid into that system. That would be my, what goes off the top of my head originally that makes me nervous. But again, you just save as much as you can. If you're not happy with where you're at, and you just don't have that much time on your side, it's a reality check, and you need to limit as much as you can, your expenses and some of the luxuries for the time being, and try and build up what you can with the short amount of time that you have.
I think budgeting would become a really big point to focus on at that stage where you're just kind of starting your nest egg. I think you touch on something important where, you must have had some kind of income stream if you were getting it under the table. That does not go towards Social Security, right? So that will not apply. So just different things to keep your eye on. But it's an interesting situation.
And for our last question of the podcast today, this has to do with 401ks. If I hit my yearly limit early and my company stops matching, how am I leaving money on the table?
Yeah. So, 401ks, 403bs, employer-sponsored retirement accounts for that matter, some of them offer a match and some of them don't, right? So I have a fair number of clients who have access to, employer-sponsored retirement plans, and they don't have a match. That kind of makes us critically think as to whether or not that is the account that makes the most sense. That kind of defeats a lot of the benefit of an employer-sponsored account, because you can get the same, taxation and other types of accounts, traditional IRA, Roth IRA. You could use a brokerage account, things like that. For my clients who are perhaps high income earners or high percentage allocators to their 401k, they might hit that IRS limit early. They might kind of exhaust that savings vehicle, if you will. And then we have to look towards, other things that are outside of the 401k, perhaps a Roth IRA or traditional IRA on the side. There are income limits and some rules to work around there. So don't just go run and open one up without opening up, the hood, so to speak. Perhaps a brokerage account, health savings accounts are great and good tax advantaged accounts. So you're definitely not, out of options. I would say you're leaving money on the table if you've got a ways till retirement, you still, want to take some risk and invest in the market, so to speak. And instead this is just going in a bank account, that might be leaving, money on the table. Obviously it's, we get, small percentage yield in the bank account. Obviously it's safe. It's not, money in a bank account's not there to make money. It's just there to not lose money. So, those people need to get a little bit crafty with what are the other accounts that are available to them. There exists some rules and certain plans that allow you to go above and beyond the IRS limit and contribute to something called an after-tax bucket. And then you can roll that after-tax bucket over to a Roth IRA periodically throughout the year. The term for that is called a mega backdoor Roth IRA. It's actually the technical term for it. That's if the plan allows it. So you're not without of options just if you hit that limit throughout the year and they stop contributing.
Right, and I think there's kind of you and I were talking about this as well. It's like the proverbial pecking order, right? If you are getting a match in your 401k, that's the first place you should put it, right? Get up to that match. That's free money. You don't want to leave that on the table. That'll shoot you in the foot later in life, right? If there's other accounts outside of that 401k match that are useful to invest in, right? We kind of look at the Roth IRA at that point. Then we can look at the HSA, right, which is probably the most tax advantaged account that we have, right? Tax deductible contributions, tax deferred growth, tax free withdrawals for healthcare expenses. Just have to have that high deductible health plan.
Yep.
But it goes to say that there's always investment options, right? Even if you're not putting it into your 401k, there are so many other investment vehicles out there that are great at saving for retirement. So many things to explore, right? We see this with clients all the time. Don't leave money on the table. If it's in your bank account, it's earning a great interest rate right now if it's in a high interest savings account, but that is not going to stick around forever. That is a very finite thing that's going on with savings accounts just based on where interest rates are right now. So don't leave money on the table. If it's in your bank account, you also have you're more inclined to spend it, kind of pay your future self, right? Invest in yourself in the future, invest for your retirement.
Absolutely.
And with that will wrap up the episode. Thank you, fellas.
Of course.
Thank you for having us.